Hello you lovely people and welcome. I thought I'd do a quick video on the latest update for the CJ Simulations Eurofighter Typhoon. This will be version 0.1.9. Just to cover a couple of things, because I keep reading that people are still having issues with the fly-by-wire cutout and things like that, but it's really quite simple if you read the change log or the manual, and it will tell you what you need to do. So we're just going to go down the change log. I've got it in front of me. So general improvement of textures, as well as increase to 3D models geometry, and we'll have a look a bit more closely at one of the textures once we get into the sim. Improve general handling in fly-by-wire, as well as an autopilot behaviour. And yeah, the autopilot has been redone with some minor changes here and there. Flight models revision, yes, tweaks have been made as well to the flight model. Transition between fly-by-wire load mode and direct mode at 185 knots has been removed. This was where people were having the issues. You get the gear down, you're on downwind, you get below 185 knots. People who don't realise that there is a fly-by-wire cut-off, the nose dips. They start to panic, and then before they know it, they've hit the deck. Whereas it would go gear down on your downwind. As soon as 185 knots hits, you trim up, get the angle of attack up, and reduce the speed to something a bit sensible for landing, and then try and hold that angle of attack all the way down in once you touch down. So like I say, it's not too complicated. The information's there. It's just some people either don't know where to find it, or they just rely on just asking questions after questions to find out, instead of looking at the manual or change log. So this mode now, the fly-by-wire switchover, has been changed so that when the gear comes down, it becomes a manual trimming. Now, there are some issues with the sim if you do this below 200 knots. And I'll read it directly from the changelog, because it kind of makes sense. I don't know what a PID is, but we'll go through it anyway. So now the transition is linked directly to landing gear deployment retraction. However, needs to be warned that the loss of control occurs due to a PID controller's reset hard-coded in the sim, causing a control delay by users' inputs. Therefore, since this transition reset cannot be avoided, whenever the intention is to land, it is preferable to deploy the landing gear above 200 knots. Now, I have a general rule with fighter aircraft that I will deploy the gear between 200 and 250 knots anyway. It's usually as soon as I'm below 250 knots, get dirty, get the gear down, and then start getting the flaps down. Get the drag in and slow the plane down. So the idea is to keep it above 200 knots for when you deploy the gear, otherwise you may run into a few issues, but it's a sim issue, not the plane issue. And yeah, so if you're a particular high angle of attack, or the plane is banked more than necessary, that's when you'll start to run into issues if you deploy the gear below 200 knots. Next, re-edited the size of the HUD content. Many users reported that it was poorly readable on small monitors. I've got a big monitor and I had issues, but my eyes aren't great anyway. But now, much more user friendly and less of an eye strain. And that's the same for the HMD, ADI and LEV functions. Next is the crew visibility switch function has been eliminated for now in order to leave the pilot's visibility associated with the external camera. So as soon as you switch on to external mode and you're looking at your own aircraft, the pilot will automatically be there instead of having to rely on a switch. And then last but not least, kind of a biggie, all autopilot logic has been rewritten. Altitude hold and alt selected functions have been split between alt and climb buttons respectively. During climb, a distinction should be made between auto, vertical speed and FPA modes. While vertical speed and FPA are well known, auto will regulate the vertical speed based on airspeed and target altitude. This means that a lower airspeed, for example, the climb rate will decrease to avoid the risk of stalling. Likewise, the vertical speed will tend to zero as the target altitude is reached. Climb will not transition to alt hold once the target altitude is reached. However, it will stabilize the aircraft in the same way as alt hold. And then the last bit, heading and track modes work as usual. However, modifying the heading with the flight stick will cancel these modes and will change to roll until user stabilizes the airplane again to re-engage. Right, so that's the boring readout for you guys sorted. Let's actually get into the plane. So I went with a 41 Squadron T&E aircraft. As you can see, the liveries and external details have been given a bit more of a pop. See the rivets and panel lines and things like that, as well as the actual 3D models geometry as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a dingy day at Coningsby, but live weather and all that. Let's jump in the cockpit. So inside the cockpit, let's start off with the re-editing of the size of the information in the HUD. As you can see, it's a lot more readable, fills more of the HUD itself, as that's also taken over to the ADI here, as well as your helmet mounted display, a lot bigger. I'll get that down, and also in the FLIR as well, the information is a lot more readable. So nice changes there, a lot more user friendly. Now we're going to go on to the autopilot. So we'll get it up in the air and we'll just go over the new climb mode. As you can see, we're cruising along around about 20,000 feet, so we'll get the autopilot on and altitude hold. And what I'm going to do is we're going to decrease that 20,000 to 10,000 because way too high for any of this. Okay, and we're going to hit climb. As you can see, the aircraft is now descending. It's all speed dependent as well. If you're in a climb, how steep or shallow is dependent on how fast you're going. If you're going too slow, the aircraft will keep it in a shallow climb just so as not to stall the aircraft out, and with a higher speed the climb will be a bit steeper, and I'm guessing it'd probably be the same in the descent, although I can't see it really being an issue stalling in the descent. So I'm going to take that down to 10,000 feet. Once we're there, we're going to do the heading hold, sorry, head back down towards Coningsby, which is behind us. Now the heading and the track, like I say, work in a similar way. If you have them activated, as soon as you touch your flight stick, it will cut the hold for the heading and the track, but it will leave your aircraft in a roll hold. until you're ready to make your next move, and I'll show that in a second. In fact, we can start doing a turn 180 now. So you'll see that we can't do anything with the heading bug at the moment, so we need to activate heading, and now we can finally get some movement out of the aircraft. I'm going to take that all the way around to 050 or thereabouts. Actually, no, we'll leave it at 090. Okay, what altitude are we at? Almost at 10,000. What I'm going to do is I'm going to interrupt the turn once we're at 10, just to show you. Just let that settle. Okay, so we're at 10,000. It won't hold, just to make you aware of that. It will keep it steady, but you will need to click altitude hold. As you can see, the heading bug is there. I'm going to interrupt the turn now, make it steeper. Heading bug is now disengaged, but it will, like I say, keep the aircraft in a roll hold. So I'm just going to level that out, because if we don't have near wings level, we won't be able to get the heading bug hold. As you can see, it's already back in, back to where we want it. So let's get back towards Coningsby. There we go. Climb, get back up to 10,000. And we're pretty much settled where we want to be. We're heading in the right direction, and we're almost at the right altitude. All is good. So on to the next bit, which is the fly-by-wire disconnect. So I'm just going to get back to Coningsby, and we'll get it. We'll fly over the airfield, get downwind, get dirty, and prepare for landing. Coming into Coningsby now. I'm going to brake overhead. A bit of a side wind, so this should be a bit of fun. Yeah, so like I say, we're going to get ourselves downwind. I'm going to extend the downwind, just so that it gives us a little bit of extra time and gives me a bit of time for my brain to think and get the words to my mouth to talk, whilst I'm also performing this demo. So we're going to brake overhead. We're going to brake now. So we've got a nice sensible speed. Ground speed is 240 knots, and we are now going to get the gear down. Okay, so the fly-by-wire cut-off has kicked in. Trim up as we slow down, so that we can keep ourselves in a sensible position for when we make our turn in for finals. And you can see nose is dropping, but you need to manually trim and be prepared for it. It's simple. As soon as that gear's down, the flow-by wire will kick out, so you need to be ready for it, and keep the speed at a decent speed. Now we're going to make our turn in. Level out. Remember there's a side wind, so we're going to have to slightly keep the nose to the left of the airfield. Braking. Get the air brake out as well. Oh blimey, that is a hell of a side wind. Okay, so that wasn't the best approach in the world ever, so I apologise for that, but we're down on the ground. We've used our manual trim to get down, and we are nice and safe. So yeah, there you go. I'm going to end it here because I feel like I'm sort of repeating myself now. So if you got anything from this video, then I really hope that's the case. And if you got this far, thank you for watching, and as always, take care, and I will catch you in the next one.